Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vulnerability Hangover. I'm your host Nikki, and today we're going to be doing a podcast in the car, so a car cast, and I'm pretty excited because I'm driving to Bend right now. I'm about to go see Matt Rife's comedy show. For those of you who don't know, I live in Portland, Oregon, so Bend is about a 3.5-hour drive, give or take, with traffic, and I think a lot when I am driving, and I think it's refreshing. I think it's a good thing, and it can be a bad thing. It's kind of distracting sometimes. I feel like when I drive, I disassociate a little, so talking it out on a podcast episode is the best option for me right now. I feel like I have an audience, and it's making the time go by faster. So today I wanted to talk about something that I've been struggling with a little. I wouldn't say struggling. Something that I'm figuring out with my dating experiences. So in the past episode, in one of my episodes, I talk a lot about my relationships and approach to dating now. And, I just don't agree with every single thing that I said in that episode. And quite frankly, at that time, I was still operating at the same mindset. And the mindset that I have now is a lot more different because, in the past, I felt like I was always the one that had to be making the moves, and I was really exhausting my energy and wasting it on people who I know at the end of the day probably weren't going to end up with me. And so the other day, I was on FaceTime with a couple of my friends, and we were talking about this guy that I was seeing, and I've been single for a little over a year now. I'm not really looking for a relationship at this point. I feel like if I was to get in a relationship, it would have to be absolutely perfect. I think the mindset that I have when meeting people is just see where it goes. Take my time. They can take their time. But we can still, talk to other people and decide in a couple of months if we want to continue seeing each other as friends or a little bit more. And in my experiences in this past year and a half, nobody has fully hit the 2-month mark. And I'm not really sure the reason why. I feel like I'm just kind of wanting to get myself out there and experience different people. But I think also with the whole online dating thing, dating has been kind of a struggle for me. So I have been expanding my reach. I have Hinge right now, and I call it traveling. I've been kind of traveling around different states and seeing what type of people are out there. And I like doing that because, most of these people are just a plane ticket away, and you could always book a fun trip, go with a girlfriend, and then maybe meet them for dinner or meet them over FaceTime, Skype, all that kind of stuff. There's so much more opportunity rather than just staying in your state. So I met this guy online. I've been talking to him for a while now, and he came to Portland, and we had a nice night. But one thing that I'm realizing is I have issues with almost oversexualizing myself in order to appeal to a man. So I very much feel like I'm operating out of the male gaze. And I noticed this because pretty much right off the bat, the conversation seemed to be pretty sexual. A lot of it regarding my body and like even the line of work that I've been in and what I do for work. So, I'm used to this my entire life. I've always been sexualized, unfortunately. Even from a super young age, I've always been super curvy, petite, and honestly a bit of a flirt. And sometimes I feel like it can get taken a little bit too far, and I'm not the best with boundaries, although that is something that I'm very much working on. So this realization that I had last night when I was on FaceTime with my friends is like, I don't know if these guys really like me because of me, or if they're just saying they like me and really they are just wanting to, sleep with me or get with me. So it really kind of struck a nerve, and I was really upset because I was replaying conversations in my head and overanalyzing the entire thing. And if you've ever read the 4 Agreements book, one of the agreements is to never assume, and I was also operating off of assumptions that these guys, maybe one in specific, had of me, because we never really have had a conversation about what his plan is and what my plan is. Another thing too, I catch myself appealing to them by stretching, by pushing my own boundaries and values and that kind of stuff, like trying to talk about possibly not being monogamous. At the end of the day, even if I really did trust the person, I truly do not know if I could be in any open relationship. Now, that's not to say that if later on down the road the relationship feels differently, like I love that person, I know things can change and maybe would want to open the relationship, but in my experience being in long-term relationships, I've just never been comfortable inviting another person in. And I don't know, I have my own opinions about monogamy and whatnot, and whether or not I think men are monogamous, but I also think that in today's society, especially with how social media is, I feel like it's really kind of ruined dating and chivalry, and things are so obtainable when there should be work put in. Like, even on dating apps, I'm on dating apps, and if I wanted to go out on a date tonight, I could just swipe through a couple of likes and make a plan to go out to dinner with someone. If I want a bag of groceries, I could order it online. And I'm not saying it's entirely bad, but I just think that with things being so obtainable, it makes it hard to date because we have so many options. We have so many options for everything. That being said, it's really hard to stand out, I guess, in the dating world, and maybe that stems from an insecurity of mine, feeling like I'm not good enough or something, but I always have to find ways that I can stand out to a guy, and I think I have a really good personality. I'm very outgoing. I am a good listener. I care about people. And hey, I'm not pitching myself to you guys, you already know, but I feel like I have to go the extra mile, so I catch myself sexualizing myself. I'm like, hey, men do it to me all the time. Why can't I do it for myself to make myself seem more appealing? But then that just walks me in to, oh, well, she's easy, or that's all she wants. And then there's no real clear communication. on where this relationship takes us. I've also been in situations where I don't sexualize myself. The guy ends up sexualizing me a little bit. I set boundaries, and then they wait. And then, we go and do the deed, and all of a sudden, they're gone. And that's hurtful. But I've learned to navigate those types of situations and vet men out. I feel like going into this now Venus retrograde, I'm learning a lot about how I approach relationships now, and it's just going to continue to evolve. But I think right now, in this moment, I am not ready to be in a relationship, but I am open to going on dates and getting to know people, because you never know, like maybe a couple dates in, I change my mind and I'm like, oh, I want to be with this person. But I'm also not really open to casual sex. That's just not the type of person I am. I am realizing I am such a lover. I always suppressed that part of me because I always felt and was expressed like that I was too much for a person. I was suffocating, but I really love people hard, and that connection I take very seriously, especially when it comes to my body and they're in my space and my energy and all that kind of stuff. I also have to feel very safe with the person that I'm with sexually because of everything that I've been through. And, I'll be honest, it's very hard for me to feel safety with a lot of men. And that's something that I'm working on in therapy, and it's a process for sure. I feel like I'm constantly finding new wounds and healing from them. I also don't know when I want to get married or have kids, but I know that that's my goal. And if a person doesn't agree with that kind of stuff, I don't know if I could be with them and continue the relationship. Like if they didn't want to have kids or they didn't want to get married, I don't think I could compromise on that, and I wouldn't want them to compromise on something like that either with me. So I'm learning to set non-negotiables and standards for myself. And I think that I've met a lot of amazing people along this dating experience journey. I have made friends with a lot of these guys. I have, figured out what type of people I don't want to be with. My gosh, there's some stories that I could just go on about. And, I think that there's also some things that I'm like, wow, this person really changed my perspective on a lot of things. Like, that one guy in specific really spoke to me in a way that was gentle and kind and empowering to me, whereas I didn't really get that in the other relationships that I have with men. Not saying that they're low caliber or anything or low value, but just he was a lot older and more mature, and I feel like he just made me feel a lot better. But anyways, I am running out of thoughts and things, and when I feel like talking again, I'll check back in. So, peace.